Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. How is everyone today?
Hi. Hello. Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. My name is Owen, and I'll be your trainer for today's session and today's class. So who have we got? Okay, so we've got Stacey.
Mhm.
Hey Stacey, how you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Good, thank you. We've got Campbell. Oh, he's down the back. He's waving, but I can't see him. And the third person that we've got here today is Rachel. How are you today, Rachel?
Good. Thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Well, okay, we've got the introductions done, which is nice. That's good to hear. So as we discussed previously, the unit of competence that we're talking about today is the Cert 3 in Early Childhood Education and Care. But the other embedded unit of competency that we'll touch on today for this session is working with diverse people, CHC DIV 001. So this will be just one session. It'll be comprising of a 30 minutes in total. Okay. So the objectives for today's lesson reflect on our own perspectives and communicate with people from diverse backgrounds and situations. The resources that we'll need for today are a notepad and pen, and the classroom will be just a classroom environment. Okay. So in the event that there's a fire or an emergency, I'll just get everyone that's here to head down the back, head out the back door onto the lawn, and that's the emergency meet-up point. In the event that there's a fire, I'll be your emergency fire warden. I'll take a roll call of everyone's name, everyone that's present, and inform the authorities that there's an issue. If anyone needs first aid, I'll be the one that'll attend, as I'm the first aid attendant for this workplace as well. Alrighty, so today it'll be facilitated learning. It'll be face-to-face, and we'll actually be touching on an assessment. So you will be given an assessment later on. But what we'll be doing is I'll be briefing you on that assessment. I'll be asking you questions in relation to that assessment and in relation to the topic. That way we can fully comprehend and understand what is expected and a way to be able to approach that assessment together. That way everyone's on the same playing field, it's a firm but it's a fair approach for everyone as well. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Perfect. Alrighty, so we'll be talking about identify and reflect on own social and cultural perspectives and biases. We'll also be talking work with awareness of our own limitations in self and social awareness. Use reflection to support own ability to work inclusively and with understanding of others. We'll also be talking about identifying and acting on different ways to improve our own self and awareness. Showing respect for diversity and communication with all people. Use verbal and non-verbal communication constructively to establish, develop, and maintain effective relationships. Mutual trust and confidence, where a language barrier exists, and uses effective strategies to communicate in the most efficient way possible. And seeking assistance from interpreters or other persons according to communication needs. So they're all the topics that comprise working with diverse people. So we're going to touch on some of the information today, just as part of that facilitated learning, just to create more of an understanding. How does that sound?
Works for me. Sounds great.
Perfect. Alrighty. So identify and reflect on our own social and cultural perspectives. So stereotyping. Rachel, what can you tell me about stereotyping?
Stereotyping is like
Just in your own opinion.
yeah. So it's like when you assume something about a group of people based on, a typical behaviour you expect of that group of people.
Yeah.
Like, for example, it's a stereotype that Mexican people eat tacos, right?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true. Some people don't like tomato.
That's true.
But yeah, that's a stereotype.
That is. Fantastic. That's really good. It shows that you're socially aware as well, and you're really touching into that cultural perspective. We all love tacos, and we all know Mexican people, and we all know that tacos taste great, but I've never eaten a Mexican. Does that make sense? Is that just me?
Yeah, that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay, cool. Fantastic. So that's good. So exactly. So we've talked about the contributing factors to your bias. Workplace consequences. Okay, so in the event that there is someone within the workplace that is being stereotyped, what is a consequence of that happening in the workplace?
Well, if that does happen, I guess it could make that particular employee feel not welcome there.
Yep.
They won't perform as good as they can.
Yep.
They'll, cost the company a lot of money through potentially lower performance or absenteeism because of how they're being treated at work.
Yeah.
As why should somebody work hard for a team of people who don't respect them as an individual?
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are some consequences for the workplace if stereotyping
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
and associated behaviour.
Yeah.
Like bullying or harassment, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah, very well explained. No, really well said. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask a couple of questions, okay? So some of these questions may or may not be in an assessment that will be conducted later on today.
Yep.
So if you can define what is meant by direct and indirect discrimination in your own words, what your thoughts on that are?
Well, direct discrimination would be like actively discriminating against someone or a group of people because they're different to you or whatever. You just don't like a particular thing about them, like their gender, their race, whatever, their sexual orientation.
Yeah.
So direct discrimination would be like telling someone that you don't like them because they're gay, or you have a problem with them working in your workplace because they're from a different country.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Indirect discrimination though, I'm not actually sure. Can you explain that one? Because I don't really know what that means.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so indirect discrimination is defined when there's a neutral rule or a requirement that is provided for all people, but at the same time it delivers a disadvantage to that person as well.
Yeah.
So they possess an attribute that cannot access the same sort of effect that someone else does without a disadvantage.
So would it be like everyone must come to this workplace activity where we're all going to run around and play chasey, and if you don't come, you're in trouble, right? But you've got an employee who's in a wheelchair. Is that indirect discrimination, do you think?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, so I really love that example. But also it might be all men aged between 25 and 35 can attend.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
So it's not discriminating against someone because of their race or their gender, but it's kind of like an ageism, really.
Yeah.
So it's indirectly saying these people are allowed to do this, but people between this age bracket aren't.
Yeah.
So it's indirectly discriminating against those people.
Yeah, that reminds me of Kentucky tours. They only allow 18 to 35-year-olds on their tours.
That's right.
But then there's also like other tours designed for 50+ people.
Yeah.
So I just find it really interesting that that's like legally allowed, even
Yeah.
though it's technically indirect discrimination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly right. But as you mentioned with direct discrimination, that could be about someone's race, gender, or sexual orientation. I don't like this person because of the colour of their skin or the way that they look or the fact that they're a man or a woman or anything along those lines. So that's direct, and then we've talked about indirect as well.
Yeah.
So Stacey, I'm going to ask you a question as well, okay? So I'm going to talk about non-verbal communication. Can you tell me 5 forms of non-verbal communication?
Hey, yeah. So I was going over this earlier today, and I'm pretty sure I've nailed it. So I think the 5 non-verbal forms of communication. So it's eye contact, facial expression, gestures, tone of voice,
correct,
and touch.
Oh, how good are you? How good's that?
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone, let's give Stacey a round of applause. That's good. That's straight to the point. That's like it's out of a textbook or something. That's amazing. You've done so well. So it looks like the learning and the teaching that I've been doing with you all recently has really helped. It's amazing. Okay, Rachel, I'm going to jump over to you. Okay, I'm going to ask you another question.
Yeah.
In your own words.
Yeah.
Can you outline the relationship between a human need and a human right?
Okay, yeah. So...
From what you've learned.
Yeah. So a human need is something that a human actually needs to survive.
Yeah.
I.e., food and water, shelter, and I guess to a lesser extent, reproduction.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can't achieve that if you're dead, right?
No.
But a human right is like the right to exist free of discrimination for whatever particular thing that you might be different with. Like, you could be a minority, so someone who lives in a country with a whole group of different coloured people of a different race, and then your family immigrated. It's your human right so that you don't, you know, you're not disadvantaged just because of your creed, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like a human right not to be wrongfully imprisoned, to have the equal opportunity to find employment, you know, live your life to the fullest. That would be a human right.
Yeah. Sorry, we've got dogs running around. We've got classroom dogs smashing into walls, causing a ruckus. What are you doing? That's really well explained, Rachel. That's really good. As you did touch on, you're 100% correct. So human need is that requirement, obviously, for a human to exist, to thrive. So as we need food, we need water, we need oxygen, we need a form of shelter, and we need to be able to sleep and stay warm for our body to function and our body to continue. And you also touched on the human rights. So you are 100% correct there as well. So human rights are based on receiving respect, equality, being treated fairly, being treated as an equal, being treated with dignity, but also making those really good choices and treating other people in the same way as well. So that's really well said. Really, really well said. You're doing an amazing job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, you're most welcome. And that takes us back to the topic that we were talking about. Okay, so we're talking about work with an awareness of one's own limitations in self and a social awareness. So how would you do that within the workplace? So how would you create awareness for other cultures within your workplace?
You can have like cultural days, like international days.
Yeah, that's right.
You could do a whole bunch of like food days based on, you know, where people in your office space hail from. You know, you could have Scottish people, and you could have like a traditional Scottish food day.
Yeah.
And then they can sort of get you involved with their culture, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, that's what most people bond over. Most cultures bond over food. And every nation has their own particular cuisine. So that makes sense that you could increase cultural awareness that way.
Yeah.
I don't know, what else do you think?
I think that's really good. Yeah, definitely holding a cultural lunch or a cultural day and really focusing on someone's background. It doesn't just make them feel good about themselves, but it also, I feel on the other hand, it would make you feel good about yourself as well, and people within the workplace, because what it's demonstrating to those members are that people are actually care. They care about where they came from, English being a second language, and being far away from their family and their friends from where they came from. What are they doing? Oh, they're just playing. That's okay. That's a really good way of bringing people together. It starts that conversation of, where did you grow up? How was life where you grew up? Tell me a little bit about your culture, your history, your traditions, those sorts of things. But even pairing up with someone from a different cultural background, or even a different social background. So someone from a different socio-economic background, someone from, whether you've got someone from a higher class to a lower class, or a lower class to a higher class, and pair them up together and they can learn from each other what was different in their lives while they were growing up, and different in society. Because society really does put I wouldn't quite say label, but they tend to kind of put people in different places. So we want to try and break that stigma between cultures and society, and really open up those conversations between our social interactions, which takes us for working with diverse people. So how does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds great. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll talk about showing respect for diversity in communication with all people. So as we talked about, the relationship between our human needs and our rights. So we've touched on that. When we talk about explaining the rights and responsibilities of workers, and the right to work in a workplace free of discrimination. So in terms of working in a workplace with discrimination, how would we go about addressing discrimination within the workplace?
If you are being discriminated against, or you see someone being discriminated against, the first thing I would do is go to my supervisor and report it.
Yeah.
And say, can you please get this to where it needs to go, because that's not acceptable behaviour.
Yeah.
It's 2021, about to be 2022. The last thing we want to be doing is alienating people based on factors about themselves they can't just change.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, what is this? 1996? I don't think so.
No.
I would report it to my supervisor. But, if it was my supervisor who was being discriminatory, I would go to maybe their supervisor to let my higher up know that one of their employees isn't doing the right thing by the rest of the people in the company. And if it wasn't me being discriminated against, I would even approach the person who is on the receiving end and just console them and have a conversation with them to find out their attitude about it, just to provide that level of support that they may not have had before, and help them go and report it if they want to themselves.
Yeah, definitely. That's really well said. Pardon me. Sorry. Didn't mean to do that. Excuse my flatulence from the top end, not the bottom end. So.
Top end flatulence.
Top end flatulence. That's a little chew toy from our classroom dogs.
Yeah.
So that's really good. You've touched on the appropriate action of what would occur if someone was identified to discriminating against someone, and also for what someone would do if they're being discriminated. Who would they go to? What would they seek out?
Yeah.
And the reasons why someone would be discriminated against could be from any of the factors of culture, race, their disability, ethnicity, their sexual orientation, their religious or spiritual beliefs, anything along those lines. Or it just could just be someone just not wanting to be a nice person, and just being a bully.
Bullying for the sake of bullying.
Yeah, and that's a form of discrimination. It's a very subliminal discrimination, but it's still discrimination. It's still making someone not feel safe within the workplace, and that's something that we should all feel that we should be able to walk into, in any room, in any building, in any situation in life, is to be able to feel safe, and not just physically safe, but also mentally safe, and that way we can all feel comfortable. I know I try and promote a safe workplace for the place that I work in, as a trainer, as a full-time job, but also a safe environment for you all to show up in as well. Not just the mental side of things or the physical, but also the desks that we sit at, the chairs that we sit on, the room being well ventilated and well climate controlled as well. That's a form of safety. So that's also something to be considerate of. Okay, so we're going to touch on, which we've touched on once before, very mildly. Thank you for providing those answers, by the way. Using verbal and non-verbal communication to constructively establish, develop, and maintain effective relationships, mutual trust, and confidence. So if we've touched on non-verbal communication, which you've provided the five examples for, what is verbal communication? What would you, from your opinion, what would you say verbal communication is? If you don't know the answer, that's okay as well.
That's okay. I think I understand. So verbal communication is like the actual conversation of communication, like the speech and written. So like writing letters, that's a form of verbal communication. And and like right now we're engaging in verbal communication through oral communication.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's really, really good. On the money. Yeah, written and oral are the two forms of verbal communication. And then, as we touched on before, the forms of non-verbal communication are eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, tone of voice, and touch.
Yeah.
That's really well said. Okay, let's throw another question into the mix. Okay, so this may or may not, once again, may or may not be on your test, on your assessment this afternoon. Okay, so can you discuss the concept and the definition of diversity in your own words?
Yeah. So I guess it's like the difference between different types of people, and diversity like focuses on each person's unique characteristic.
Yeah.
So each person's different, and that should be accepted and embraced rather than discriminated against.
Yeah.
So it's also like described as a respect for and an appreciation of people that, are varied in age, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation.
Yeah.
People with disabilities, like any particular thing that separates them from the majority of the cohort, I suppose.
Yep.
So it includes like all people regardless of all of their cultural and human differences, and accepts them for who they are. So, recognition of these differences and accepting them all, that is diversity to me.
Yeah. Pardon me. Sorry.
The top end, what did you call it?
Oh.
Top end flatulence.
Yeah, top end flatulence, yeah. Instead of the back end flatulence, you don't want that.
That's good.
That's really well explained. That's really,
you.
really well explained. Do you, from what you've just explained to me, within your own workplace, do you find that diversity is well accepted and well embraced?
Yeah. So my own workplace, I work for the government, so there's certain citizenship requirements, which makes it a bit hard, to have truly diverse representations of the Australian population.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are expats who have come from other countries who have achieved Australian citizenship who I work with.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is hard to have there are no people on visas.
Yeah.
Everybody's an Australian citizen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different. I feel a bit sheltered
Yeah.
from true workplace diversity for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really good. Really good. Why is it important for managers, supervisors, and their staff to reflect on their own social and cultural perspectives and biases?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, so it's funny that you asked me. So I guess, for an example, the healthcare environment by itself is such a diverse and culturally diverse environment.
Yeah.
And it encompasses various workers from many different cultural and ethnic backgrounds.
Yeah.
So, your managers, supervisors and staff to reflect on this. It allows for all healthcare professionals in the workplace, regardless of their status or rank in the workplace, to truly reflect on their own individual and cultural backgrounds.
Yeah.
So that can lead to various discussions taking place in the workplace, and practices can be shared across all the different cultures that are being communicated and expressed.
Yeah.
So the self-reflection between all people will promote a vast cultural awareness and sharing the knowledge and skills of people's particular cultures, views, perspectives, and biases.
Yeah.
So, this behaviour, it is important because all people from all different backgrounds deserve to be treated as equals and equally. As, healthcare and the treatment of all beings of all human beings, should be equal, right?
Yeah.
So there should be no biases between patients and various cultural backgrounds.
Yeah.
As that would be breaching the workplace code of conduct and your duty of care as a healthcare professional.
Yeah.
For providing a different level of care between patients, as it should always be at the highest level. And everybody should be treated the same. So it's super important that everybody reflects on their own social and cultural perspectives and biases, because lives are literally at stake.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you, I thought of it myself.
That's amazing. I think Rachel should be up here teaching the class. Does everyone agree? Or is it just me? That was amazing. That was really well said. Okay.
Thank you.
So flowing on to that, and will be the last question that I'll ask, is can you discuss discuss 3 key benefits to having a diverse and multicultural workforce?
Yeah, well, the first one that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
So it's the productivity of your workplace.
Yeah.
It'll increase because it's basically creating a platform for many more ideas and work processes to be created and initiated.
Yeah.
So, workplace productivity increase as a result of diverse range of skills and experiences, which will increase the determined outcome. So that's just my thoughts on one of the benefits. Did you want me to say the other 2 that I think?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. So, another one, there'll be improved cultural awareness in the workplace.
Yeah, very good.
So that has the potential to lead to external stakeholders being indoctrinated into the workplace from diverse backgrounds, and more people internally and externally into the workplace will feel they can bring more to the table.
Yeah.
So, for example, having workers who speak another language other than English can help open a new market or channel for the company that they work for.
Yeah.
So they can work hand in hand, with foreign agencies and people, because they have that the same language. So the second one is cultural awareness improvement. The third one.
You're doing really well, by the way.
Oh,
this is amazing.
Yeah, I was going over my notes before class, so I thought it's all fresh in my mind.
It's good.
So the third benefit, I think, is your workplace can use various forms of advertising to cater for a wider demographic and a more diverse workforce.
Yeah.
You can get mature age workers and people from different cultures
to
put their 2 cents into it. So that it's nothing insensitive.
That's really good. That's really well said.
Oh, thank you. It's just my thoughts.
Yeah. Oh, no, perfect. No, thank you so much for that. 3 really good key benefits. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And it does make sense, especially people from different cultures who've got different perspectives on life, who've worked in many various workplaces and done a lot of different things, and mature age workers as well. So you're going to get a lot more variety out of hiring someone that's in their 30s or 40s potentially, compared to someone that's 14 and 9 months and is allowed straight into the workforce.
Yeah.
As much as they can both be moulded, it just depends on the person, depends on the age, depends on their background, as in what work experience they've got. So, yeah. No, that's really well put. I think that pretty much covers off everything that we've talked about today. So once again, we talked about working with diverse people as the unit of competency, and we've touched on all the topics that are inside that topic, that unit of competency. So before we go, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read you out. Okay, cool. I'm just going to read you out your brief, your candidate brief, and this is to all of you as well. So you all get the same brief for the assessment this afternoon. So the purpose and objective of the assessment is to assess the learner's ability to retain information as well as display their knowledge of the competency. In the event that you do not receive a satisfactory outcome as a result of the assessment, there will be an opportunity for a retest. If you're not successful a second time, you'll have to resit an alternative assessment. In the event that you're not satisfied with that result of the assessment, you do have the right to appeal it and the right to submit a complaint if you choose to. If you do choose to lodge a complaint, the process will be provided to you. Assessment will be taken at MEC in an area that is quiet and free from distraction. Sorry, we were talking about discrimination today. On today's date, the 25th of December. This is to enable a more proficient and streamlined workplace, and this proficiency will enable all workers to respond and work to respond to any forms of discrimination, but also work with culturally diverse people within the workplace. The assessment will be an open book. However, learners will have access to additional resources. The resources that you would need to bring with you are a notepad and pen. How does that sound so far? Are you happy with the information we're providing?
Yeah, that way.
Yeah, so you'll be assessed on the 1 unit of competency, which is working with diverse people, CHC DIV 101, and the assessment will be a written question assessment. If you do require any specific or special support needs prior to and during the assessment, please inform me prior so I'm able to best provide you the support that you personally may need to best see you achieve a positive result. So whether that's adjusting an assessment, adjusting questions, just let me know, and I'm more than happy to provide you with as many tools as I can to ensure that you're going to pass the assessment. So that brings us to the end of the session, and I thank you for your participation, and I look forward to delivering the assessment to you later this afternoon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.